Thank you for taking some time for yourself. You may notice as you sit there that sometimes life has a way of arranging things just so that no matter how clever you are or how fast you move, the situation remains exactly as it is. And you might even find yourself thinking, I can't escape this unfair situation. And that thought, well, it can float in your mind, almost like a feather that refuses to fall. And yet it's interesting how the mind can wander while it notices that things are wrong and that you feel powerless to change them. Some people might argue with that feeling, and some might just watch it as though it were a small, slightly absurd play unfolding without permission, without everyone in control. And you may even notice a part of you thinking, they control everything and I have nothing. And while that part may be frustrated, perhaps even a little indignant, another part might quietly observe, aware that hating something you can't fix is, well, sometimes all you can do. And sometimes that's more than enough. And as you notice that, you might find yourself imagining, just for a moment, that it's okay to let the hopelessness sit there. Not because it changes anything, but because even in the midst of that feeling, you can notice how alive you are, how aware, how ironic it all feels, almost like a joke the universe is playing, a joke only you can see. And while you sit there, noticing the absurd perfection of your trapped little world, it's possible to feel a certain dark amusement, a quiet recognition that even when you can't fix it, even when it's wrong, even when you have nothing, somehow you can just notice. And just noticing is its own kind of freedom. You don't have to do anything at all, really. Not even notice how trapped you feel. Not even argue with the unfairness of it. Because somehow your mind knows exactly where to wander on its own. In fact, it isn't even necessary to focus on the thoughts. I can't escape this unfair situation. They control everything and I have nothing. Because they already float into awareness without any effort on your part. Like little clouds you didn't invite, but can't quite chase away. And it isn't important whether you like that feeling or not, whether you hate it or are secretly amused by it, because the noticing happens all by itself. And you may even find that, without really trying, in fact, your unconscious mind can change all of that much better than any conscious effort could, orchestrating a kind of darkly elegant awareness while you sit back, noticing, almost amused at how completely absurd all of this is. And as you allow that to happen, you may even discover a strange freedom, noticing the injustice, feeling powerless, even hating it, and yet somehow, just somehow letting it be, without trying, without resisting, without having to fix anything at all. And while that happens, your mind may begin to explore time in a different way or space, noticing that past, present, and imagined futures can all fold together in a moment that feels like both endless and fleeting, all without your effort. And it's okay if you don't quite understand how this is happening, because understanding isn't necessary, and you don't need to make sense of it. All that matters is that in your own way, you allow yourself to experience it. The frustration, the trappedness, the deliciously ironic unfairness, while the unconscious mind quietly does its work, weaving it into something strangely manageable, even if it doesn't look like control at all. You know, I'm going to tell you a few stories, and at first you might be thinking, why am I telling you these stories? But your subconscious, of course, will be listening quietly, patiently, and will do something rather wonderful for you a little later on, without you needing to push, try, or even fully understand how it happens. I knew someone who was sent to face a dragon, a large, stubborn creature that didn't respond to reason, and they were handed a plastic fork, a broken one, a fork that could barely hold a piece of food. And they were told, if you just believe in yourself and work hard, you'll succeed. So of course they tried. They prodded, circled, considered strategies. Nothing changed. And the people who sent them shook their heads. You didn't have enough positive attitude, they said. Not a word about the fork. Not a word about the challenge itself. I knew a caterpillar who worked tirelessly, doing all the invisible, quiet labor, while the butterfly received the attention, the applause, the recognition. The work and reward didn't match. I knew a person who wandered through a world that often didn't make sense. They asked a teacher, How can I be someone worthy in a place like this? The teacher pointed to a puddle reflecting the sky. Do you see yourself? The person frowned. Yes, but it's messy. Cracked, surrounded by things I cannot change. How can I be here? The teacher smiled. I knew someone who wondered whether they could allow the tension they carried to simply settle, and whether it might do so without effort, without planning, without needing anyone to notice. You don't have to release it consciously, and it isn't necessary to push or control it. Without knowing it, a little of the weight may quietly drain away, like water slipping through the cracks in the floorboards, perfectly on its own schedule. I knew someone who experienced observing emotions from a distance and whether it might be possible to notice them without being pulled in, without needing to feel them fully or respond at all. You don't have to separate yourself deliberately. It isn't necessary to manage or name them. Without really trying, the mind can drift above the scene like a silent bird, gliding and watching, effortlessly aware, while remaining completely unbothered. I knew someone who wondered whether the shapes of thoughts, feelings and perceptions could stretch, fold or rotate, and whether different perspectives might layer themselves, as if on multiple screens, without needing interpretation. You don't have to control how it shifts. It isn't necessary to make sense of it. Without knowing it, the mind can experience the space in 3, 4, or impossible dimensions, noticing what it notices without effort. I knew someone who experienced attention moving quietly, as if on invisible rails, and whether moments could stack themselves, highlight themselves, or settle into unexpected patterns. You don't have to organize, review, or remember intentionally. It isn't necessary to make sense of what moves where. Without trying, the mind can store, rearrange, or even forget perfectly on its own, in ways that might surprise you later. I knew someone who wondered whether multiple versions of experience could appear, louder, stranger, or humorous, without needing to create or control them. You don't have to imagine them, and it isn't necessary to interact with them consciously. Without really trying, these alternate representations can exist, overlapping and circling, doing exactly what they need to do, while you remain completely relaxed. I knew someone who experienced younger versions of themselves moving through time, and whether those selves might carry quiet tools, patience, awareness, subtle insight forward into later moments. You don't have to manufacture growth. It isn't necessary to decide what to take or leave behind. Without knowing it, those resources can become available, tucked into pockets, effortlessly waiting for a moment they might be needed. I knew someone who wondered whether later, when a situation felt complicated, resources could appear naturally without effort. You don't need to plan for the moment. It isn't necessary to do anything at all. Without really trying, the mind can call on exactly what is needed at just the right time. I knew someone who could allow themselves to notice the body, the room, the sounds around them, without pushing or forcing attention. You don't have to open your eyes immediately, stretch, or breathe deeply. It isn't necessary to do anything at all. Without knowing it, awareness may return slowly, and when it does, it will be exactly the right moment, fully alert, fully present, with everything quietly available, ready to be noticed again whenever it might be useful. So take a few deep breaths, stretch out, wriggle your fingers and toes, and open your eyes. Welcome back. You're perfect, just as you are.